Councilmember Cardin's gonna be here, anybody know? Anybody know? Nobody know? Okay, well, we have on the agenda 7 items. Mr. Perry informs me we may want to continue item 7. This is on the agenda, so to keep the council, there is no report discussed, and being kept open, request of Councilmember Hahn. Report has been requested, so without opposition, we can continue number 7?
Yes.
So 7 will be continued. And also, items 1 and 2 can be considered together. Well, that's good. Okay, so let's start with items number 1 and 2 together, and then we'll go on to the other matters that we have.
On items 1 and 2, you have City Administrative Officer report relative to Amendment Number 1 to Memorandum of Understanding Number 12 for the Supervisory Blue Collar Unit for an alternative work schedule for specified senior and principal detention officers. Item 2 is
This one.
item 2 is the same thing for Amendment 3 of MOU 18.
This is Councilmember Parks' favorite subject. All right, so who wants to plead the case?
Susan Ozawa from the CAO's office.
Okay, Susan, go ahead.
These are MOU amendments for MOU number 12, which represents the senior and principal detention officers, and MOU 18, which represents the detention officers. There's been a pilot program in the Metropolitan Jail section. It's shown significant cost savings, and the department would now like to expand it to citywide. I mean, not citywide, to all of the sections of the jail division.
Well, would that be citywide?
It would, actually, yes.
So I bet they saved about $35,000 a month.
Yeah, it was significant.
What'd they do with that money? Maybe the city can use that to bail out the budget.
Perhaps.
Mr. Parks, look how much benefit we get when we go to compressed work schedule.
A whole 35,000, thank you.
No, 35,000 monthly,
Month.
a total of
You know,
$350,000.
you almost buy gas with that.
What the price of gas was good. We have a representative from SEIU 721, Brian Hollenbaugh. Hollenbaugh?
Hollenbach?
Is that how you pronounce it? All right.
Oh, you can.
Now, what's the captain doing back there, watching you?
Yeah, I'm under the gun on this one.
All right. All right, so what does the 721 have to say about this?
We're ready to start tomorrow. We've been ready to start for 4 years now.
At all?
That's all.
So you think it works?
From everyone I've talked to here across the street, it works beautifully.
Where are you assigned?
Van Nuys.
So have they tried it out there?
No, sir.
So it was only Metropolitan?
Only Metropolitan.
Okay. And it worked well there, so now we have jails in a few of the divisions, not many. We got, the harbor doesn't have one now because they're doing the station. What do we actually have?
Harbor is due to reopen sometime this summer.
But they're closed now.
They're still closed as of right now. So down in that end, you have 77th Pacific.
Okay.
Then you come up southwest, Wilshire, Hollywood, MJS, Devonshire, Foothill, and Van Nuys.
Okay. Oh, there's Julie Butcher. We should hear from her. See, you got the captain and you got Julie Butcher watching, yes.
Sir, I'm
You are
trying
really-
to pull out, I'm pulling out the heavy artillery on this. We need
You're
to
in
get this
trouble
started.
today. The only question I have is regarding this, the 12-hour schedule. Is it just for the detention officers, or is it detention officers and the civilians that are assigned to jail? Because you have a civilian component other than detention officers.
These MOU amendments are only for the detention officers and the senior and principal detention officers.
Okay. And what about the civilian population that is assigned to jail? No, I understand it's civilian, but they're detention officers. But there's another category of civilians that don't wear uniforms. They're assigned to the jail that don't wear clerk's type. That's what I'm talking about.
They're generally in 410s.
Okay, so there's not a problem, a conflict, or an issue with them at this time? Okay. And one more question regarding an aside issue. But don't let the city attorney know I'm asking this question. There was a program that we had talked about where the detention officers would go to those remote stations like West Valley or Topanga, where they don't have a jail, and be like a shuttle service to take them to a metropolitan area so we can free up a lot of officers.
Correct.
Are you involved in that at all?
I would certainly love to be, because we're ready to start that too.
Because I think that would work with this 12-hour schedule
Absolutely.
also to help out.
Absolutely.
Because I know that since we've closed a lot of jails and we've built stations without jails, there's a issue about taking those bodies from one station to the other in the downtime, and then you gotta wait and book, et cetera. So that's something that I've been trying to get moved forward, since we've got eventually, I think, 4 jails in the city, if the plan works, 1 in each area, 1 in each bureau. I thought that was the ultimate plan, a Metropolitan Valley
And 77.
77. At least I thought that was the plan at one time when they wanted to do jail consolidation. But the delay in officers' time is becoming more of an issue.
And actually, that was actually Chief Bratton's idea, was to have detention officer at each of the stations. When the officers brought their body in, hooked them up to the bench, the detention officer would take care of all the paperwork, call the transportation detail that we've talked about as well, and the officers would not even have to set foot in the jail. It would just be the detention officers bringing the bodies in, doing the bookings and so forth, allowing the officers to stay out there and handle radio calls.
Great idea. So are we closer to that?
Well, there's,
The transportation detail was considered in '08, and it was determined it wasn't economically feasible at that particular time. And what exacerbated that to some degree is the fact that we have 32 detention officer vacancies, so our ability to pull that off and yet maintain the staffing services at the jail wasn't viable.
Because one of the issues when they were pushing to build station without jails was that they would have that plan. And that was one of the issues where I recall that's gonna solve this problem. Because right now, we're spending a lot of time traveling from one station to the other. But when they went to this regionalization of the jail operation, I understood the plan was to implement that, which is why I didn't fight it when it came to West Valley for a new station without a jail, to say they would have this transportation mode. Now we got Topanga doesn't have a jail, a new station, West Valley doesn't have a jail. I don't think Mission has a jail. I don't know about Olympic Station, whether they have a jail or not. But as we're building these new stations without jails, there's this delay in the officers transporting these bodies. With the 12-hour shifts that they work, you know, they're working 12-hour shifts, and half the time they're spending taking people back and forth and then getting back to their division. Because you know, Captain, when you were a policeman, when you're over in the valley and you're assigned another part of the city on your way back, you somehow get diverted, and then it doesn't work as it's supposed to.
Right. Sir, at this juncture, there's no plans to implement a transportation detail, but it was assessed in the past.
Can you please provide your name for the record?
Sure. Captain Clay Farrell, the Command Officer of Jail Division.
So we need to somehow look into that. That was an issue that I didn't know was scrubbed. Because it's, if we're not gonna put jails in the divisions, all we're doing is wasting a lot of time, a lot of patrol officers' time. And I'm sure you can understand how that's being done.
Absolutely, sir. Sure.
Whether you're going from Topanga to Devonshire, or West Valley to Van Nuys, or West Valley to Devonshire, it just doesn't seem to work too well, as far as stretching the resources. Anyway, so I think 12-hour shift is a real controversial plan, but I think it's a good idea because it saves money. Mr. Budget and Finance Chair.
I'm glad you don't handle my checkbook.
Bobby handles your checkbook.
You know what I'd like, because we've never seen the report, if we can get copies of the actual analysis. And then the other thing I'd like to see for both personnel and for budget and finance, that we get a one-year evaluation now that we're going citywide.
That sounds right. So let's direct that be done. Copy of the documents, and then a one-year analysis. So we'll have this back here February next year. So with those conditions, you'll approve 1 and 2?
Yeah, we dealt with that at ERC. I think you were missing that day. I voted for you.
Thank you. I remember that.
Okay.
I got a note on that. All right, good. So tell your folks they can start this when? Next DP?
Very possibly, sir, yes.
When's the DP start?
March 1st, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that gives you a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right, you sold me and you sold Councilman Parks.
Thank you, sir.
All right. good
Thanks,
seeing
sir.
you, bud.
Appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Julie, thank you. We did good again, Julie. Keep that in mind. All right, number 3.
For item 3, there's a Department of Water and Power report, and this is relative to amendments to add a footnote for compensation of the Joint Labor Management Committee Coordinator, and they're represented by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Compensation for the Joint Labor Management Committee Coordinator. What was that about? Somebody's gonna get paid more money for keeping people happy?
Well, I certainly hope so. Peter Lakatos for the Department of Water and Power. This is a proposal that has something of a history. I seem to come in on the historical items, but this is something that was negotiated beginning in 2003, has been to the ERC most recently in September of 2008, but was something that was negotiated beginning in 2003. It has a limited period of duration. It's defined as a period from 2003 to 2007, and would compensate the performance of the function of Joint Labor Management Coordinator for that period of time. In so doing, we're amending 2 MOUs. One would be the Operating Maintenance and Service Unit MOU, the other the Supervisory Blue Collar. This, again, has been to ERC and was a resolution was adopted by the Board of Water and Power Commissioners in December of 2008.
2000 and when?
2008.
It started in 2003?
Initially, the earliest negotiations go back to 2003 at a time when the committees were expanding to the point that we needed active management of the committees.
And how would these people be selected?
It was a joint labor management selection process through a resolution board, which is a creation of the MOU.
What do you have to say about this one?
Marita Aspen from the CAO's office. I just wanted to verify for you that the ERC did vote on this matter in September and approved the retroactive pay for this one individual.
Retroactive to when?
Back to January of 2003, and then it goes through September 1st of 2007 and then stops.
Remind me, why did it stop in '07?
The person actually transferred out of the position. Initially, the request was to continue a bonus for the JLMC coordinator position past that point, but the ERC decided that it should only go to that one incumbent and then stop, yes.
And the total compensation is less than 60?
That's correct. One time, 60,000.
I didn't know we had the Joint Labor Management Committee Coordinator position available or open at 2003. I thought that was relatively new.
I believe that the earliest discussions probably were in 2002, but with the advent of Local 18 having assumed 5 additional bargaining units in 2003, that elevated the visibility and the scale quite a bit.
And they say time flies, so it definitely did. So this was committed to, promised to, and
Yes.
Would it continue, or would it then end at those termination dates?
No, the footnote itself is scheduled to terminate as of September 2007.
So it no longer would exist then?
That's correct.
So basically, we're giving back pay, and that's the bottom line to this.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So what do we do for Joint Labor Management Committee now? How do we handle that?
Currently, we have there is an agreement between the Department of Water and Power and Local 18 to have a elected official of the union perform that role.
Okay, that makes sense. Colleague?
What is the source of funds? Just out of their general fund?
Yes,
DWP's general fund?
DWP's fund.
Okay, thank you.
So this will be coming out of that fund. And it won't continue, so we're basically living up to what we committed to, I guess,
Yes, sir.
would you say? Okay. Your pleasure, Mr. Parks?
That's good. I support that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Number 4.
On item 4, the city administrative officer has submitted a report. This is relative to the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority Exposition Line program for 2008 and 2009 and recommended staffing authority. The Transportation Committee has recommended approval of the CEO report recommendations.
Angela Berman, CAO. In addition to the funding transfers recommended in this report, The report also recommends continuation of Resolution Authority positions and 8 new Resolution Authority positions to continue work on the Metro Rail and Expo Rail annual work program as scheduled. These new positions will include 3 civil engineering associates, 2 street lining engineering associates, 1 civil engineering drafting technician, a transportation engineering associate, and an accountant, with the final pay grades to be determined by the CAO's Employee Relations Division. It is anticipated that these positions will be fully reimbursed by Metro, and the staffing levels for this program are reviewed on an annual basis.
So again, no impact on the general fund.
Correct.
Reimburse city for approximately $6.4 million. Alan, what do you have to say about this?
Please vote yes.
Well, in that case, since we're getting the money back, doesn't phase me against it, but I'll at least see what my colleague, Mr. Park, says.
I was just wondering, what is it, the method we get the reimbursement? Is it quarterly or?
Alan Willis from DOT. We submit invoices to MTA and Expo monthly.
Okay. So what, is there a period that we have overlapping the end of the fiscal year? So we won't get all of this money in this fiscal year, there's an overlap?
Right, because the last invoices for like through June 30th would go out, and then they, after June 30th, and then they would reimburse us, once, within the terms of the contractual agreement with them.
Okay. I would just ask that we ensure that we do that monthly and that it's timely, so we can get at least 11 months during this fiscal year.
Right, we're actually pretty close to, being right on top of the invoices. With our contract with them, we're supposed to have the invoices in no more than 90 days after the period that we're billing them for, and I think we're running maybe a month, 6 weeks behind, so, we're right in there, right in the middle of the range.
So we'll hit 11 months? In this?
We should get 10 to 11 months worth this fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
Recommend approval?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 5, please.
For item 5, the Office of Finance and City Administrative Officer have submitted reports, and this is relative to increasing the audit penetration rate from 2.2 to 2.5%, and also associated staffing. The Budget and Finance Committee has considered this matter and has recommended approval of the recommendations from the CAO.
Jennifer Lopez, Office of the CAO. On December 17th, the City Council adopted the Budget and Finance Committee recommendation instructing the Office of Finance to report back on the overall cost to implement the increased audit penetration rate from 2.2% to 2.5%. Finance submitted a budget request for 12 positions and related expenses to increase the audit penetration rate. They state that if this request would yield a potential of $2 million in additional annual revenue to the city in 09-10 and $1 million for the current year if it was implemented this year. In order to minimize the implementation cost and maximize revenue, Finance proposes using existing staff. It would require the transfer of 4 former auditors to the Office of Finance for temporary to help meet the increased audit penetration rate. And it is our understanding that the Mayor's Office intends to utilize his 120 Charter Section authority, and it'll help to launch the audit penetration rate and ease the transition from transferred positions to the new audit staff. Finance estimates this proposal would yield approximately $0.8 to $1.2 million, and it's uncertain, however, whether or not those revenues would be received in the current year. However, we do recommend authority for the positions, and the CAO will identify the related salary funding and expense in the next financial status report. If you have any questions.
The difference between 2 and 2225, explain that.
I would have to defer to the Office of
Penetration
Finance.
rate.
Ed Cabrera, Chief Tax Compliance Officer 2 with Office of Finance Tax and Permit. The penetration rate for the 07-08 fiscal period was 2.2. In order to increase that to a 2.5 penetration rate, it would entail additional audits being completed by our audit staff. The plan is twofold. One, the recall of the 4 former employees of the Office of Finance who would come aboard and who they're projected to come aboard actually next Tuesday, February 17th, to begin audits. We've already selected audits and identified a work plan for them. They would be with us for a 120-day period. During this period, we would be training the additional 2 audit crews so that once they're fully trained and able to go out into the field to conduct their audits, we've already initiated the process of generating additional audits of various taxpayer accounts.
Okay. Budget and Finance approved this, which is Mr. Parks's committee. So it sounds like an idea that has merit. Mr. Parks.
You know, one thing, and I think we forgot to do this in Budget and Finance, but we should have a report back probably in August 2009 that gives us the overall results of what was collected during 08-09, and then also a report back in August of 10 with the overall results for the first full year of operation. We can send that to Budget and Finance, and if wanted for personnel also.
You got that amendment? Addition? Okay, with those conditions, without objection, we'll approve item number 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 6, please.
Office of Finance and City Administrative Officer reports, and this has to do with a proposed tax amnesty program. And Budget has considered this matter and has recommended approval of recommendations 4 through 6 from Office of Finance report, and has requested that the city attorney revise the ordinance.
Jennifer Lopez again for the Office of the CAO. The report you have before you is regarding to the proposed tax amnesty program. Currently, taxpayers that have been identified as delinquent incur penalties for non-payment of taxes owed to the city. The proposed tax amnesty program would enable taxpayers to apply for a penalty waiver for taxes owed as a result of non-reporting or underreporting their tax liabilities or their non-payment. The program would apply to the following taxes: business tax, telephone users tax, electricity users tax, gas users tax, commercial tenants occupancy tax, transient occupancy tax, and the parking occupancy tax. The proposed program is scheduled to commence, or is proposed to commence on May 1st, 2009, and end on July 31st, 2009. Finance reports that the amount of outstanding delinquencies could potentially lead to 175.6 million, of which many of these accounts are at various stages of collection. And Finance estimates that this program would generate approximately 15 million in revenue, of which 5 million would be received in the current year. So what Finance proposes to do, since it's a short-term program, is to borrow 10 former staff from other city departments for the 3-month term, because if they were to divert existing staff, it would impact their existing business tax collection operations. So Finance actually identified 70 former employees from other city departments, and they would be temporarily loaned to their department for their program. Since the proposed program is of short duration, we agree that it's best to use the Mayor's Charter Section 233 authority to temporarily transfer employees from one office to another. And if Council were to approve the program, Finance would be required to perform public outreach prior to the May 1st start date. The estimated cost for public outreach would be $189,000, which we would identify in the next financial status report. The Office of Finance did recommend salary funding for those loaned positions. However, to the extent possible, we would like to, aside from being special funded or revenue generating positions, that the departments try to absorb those costs. Finance does not have the sufficient resources to reimburse those departments at this time.
And
but we do recommend
the
approval.
salary and benefits would remain the same at their current position?
Right.
So they just be loaned over for a while?
Yes. It should be noted that in 2001, the city enacted another amnesty program where receipts were deposited 75% to the Tax Reform Fund and 25% to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. What we'd like to do is ensure to help with the general fund deficit is that all the receipts get deposited into the general fund.
Okay. Mr. Parks?
Could you remind me on the amount of money, the 300,000, what we're going to use that for during this program?
The 380, as reported by Finance, 189,000 would be for public outreach. It's advertising, What else?
Correct, advertises the program, ensuring that taxpayers and their representatives are aware of the amnesty program.
And then the 116,000 was the salary cost associated for those loan positions,
Now,
which we would
did I
hope.
misunderstand you when you said that they didn't have the funds to pay the departments back?
Yes, currently Office of Finance is short in their salaries account
So
this
then
year.
what's the 116 for?
It's to reimburse the departments for the loaned positions, and right now we would hope that we would try to have the departments absorb that cost.
Okay, so we're gonna pay them or we're gonna have them absorb it?
I would hope to absorb it. I would like them to absorb it. If they're special funded, maybe we would identify funding from the reserve fund to reimburse
We
them.
approved something less than the 300,000?
Yes, what we were recommending was the 189,000 for the outreach expense.
Okay, so that's all we're gonna approve for the mid-year?
Yes, if you agree.
Okay, so then they'll absorb the other.
What if they can't?
They could report back in the financial status report, and then at that time, we can address.
Yeah,
Any
the
shortfalls.
fourth financial status report will take care of them.
Yes, and if it's any consolation, those positions are actually already funded in the department since they're already there. So, conceptually, they could absorb it, but we will have to see.
Yeah, because that's part of their budget. The other thing is, how long do you think it will be before we'll know how successful the program is? It within almost immediate, within the first couple of months in the new fiscal year, or?
Well, since it's a 3-month program, I don't know, Ed, can you?
We may not know until the completion of the program. Some taxpayers, historically, I believe some taxpayers procrastinate, and they may not come forward until towards the end of the program, so.
What, July?
Yes, the program would run from May 1st through July 31st.
Okay, but we'd have a pretty good idea somewhere the month or two afterwards?
Yes, we will be tracking the progress of the program, so we would have a general idea.
What would be a reasonable time for a report back?
I believe that we should be able to report back probably within 2 months after the end of the program in July.
September?
You're looking at a
Yes.
monthly report, aren't you?
September '09?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we could ask you for that, to tell us what the benefit of that program was.
Yes, definitely.
And could you break it down to make sure we know how much went into '08, '09, and how much of the money went into '09 and?
Yes, we'll do.
I'm sorry, can I get clarification? Is the committee not concurring with the Budget and Finance Committee's action? Because the Budget and Finance Committee's action was actually adopting the Office of Finance's recommendation for the 305,000. If the committee is now saying that you are going to be adopting the CAO's recommendation for the 189,000, then that's different.
No, we want to adopt the lesser.
Okay,
The
then,
money, as she said, the money's already there.
Yeah.
The positions are paid for. There's no need to reimburse them for positions
correct.
that they already have.
Correct.
we've
So I'm
reduced-
just letting you know that
Yeah, we
this
admit-
action is different from the Budget and Finance's action.
We don't have to follow budget and finance.
That's right.
We can do our own thing.
Well, given the fact that the chair is here, I just wanted to be sure that he
We
understood
didn't
that.
understand it at the time.
Oh,
Now you've
okay.
been clarified at the Personnel Committee.
So once she explained it, it was okay.
The fine councilman's been enlightened. So we'll approve that without objection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Think you got some, huh, Jim? Show you.
No, but
Given the fact that it's the same
that's it.
council member that's,
No, we just understand it.
I just wanted to be sure.
No, we'll take the,
It's been clarified.
So they're approving the CAO report.
they-
CAO recommendation.